On today's Locked On Guardians, can one new/old outfielder really change your outlook on the Guardians outfield? We're going to talk about that. Plus, do the Guardians have more extensions coming? What roster moves will they make before opening day? We are 2 days away from the season. Let's go.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into our favorite half hour of the day. We hope it's yours too. This is Locked On Guardians. We're talking about the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're going to talk about the Guardians outfield. Is this the best Guardians outfield since when? We'll discuss when that looks like, what that looks like. The bullpen is being shaken up a little bit. We'll get into that. Final roster decisions, any other extensions coming, all that fun stuff. Before we get the ball rolling on today's episode of Locked On Guardians, it is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets on your first $5 wins. I'm Justin Ladd. I've been covering the Guardians minor league system since 2007. Previously, the editor-in-chief of Guardians Baseball Insider, currently at the News Herald, the Morning Journal, where you can go check out the Cleveland Guardians preview section. I've got a couple stories in there, one about Travis Bazzana, Prospects Live, and of course, my own Substack, nextyearincleveland.substack.com, where you can get my 90-page Cleveland Guardians prospect handbook for 2025.
And hello, everyone. I am currently sick. Jeff Ellis, one of your hosts here. Seems like I cannot manage to get healthy. Before I took on this job, which I've been doing for 6 years, hard to believe, I was a national prospect and draft analyst at Scout and 24/7, as well as appearing in pretty much every Cleveland sports blog that has or will exist.
Jeff, do you know what the Guardians outfield career, or I shouldn't say career, Guardians outfield high is in home runs the last decade? Can you guess which year they hit the most home runs?
I can't because I'm terrible at things like that. But if I were to place a guess for most home runs, I really haven't had too many guys back there that are socking a 10 ton. So I'm going to guess like 65.
Yeah, you're pretty close, actually. So 2019, this team hit 61 home runs as an outfield. If you just counting the time in the outfield, not DH or other positions, just outfield, 61 home runs. However, in 2019, the outfield only finished with a WRC plus of 93. The last 10 years, the best WRC plus by an outfield in Cleveland was 2016 at 107. Of course, that was the World Series year. And that was what? Michael Brantley didn't even play in that outfield. The outfield was Rajai Davis, Brandon Guyer, Lonnie Chisenhall, Marlon Byrd was on that opening day roster. Colin Cowgill was on the opening day roster. It was a fantastic outfield, right? Everything was good. That was they made the World Series. So obviously, the outfield was great, right? That's how that works.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, who did they end up trading for? Because that was not the Austin Jackson year where he came in, was it?
That was 2017. It was Coco Crisp who they brought in.
Okay, that was it. That's kind of crazy. That's the only player they went out and added in that outfield. I mean,
well, Abe Almonte was part of the outfield for a little bit, but then obviously he had the steroid suspension, so they had to trade for Crisp.
Yeah, I guess was it so? Steroids. Naquin had 14. Davis had 12s.
Oh, yeah, Naquin was in that outfield, yeah.
Yeah, and only 8 for Chisenhall, so that's still, but I guess it wasn't all about powers. It was definitely a high contact. And Almonte really did not do much at all, nor did Bird. So, yeah, they were...
It's a pretty bad outfield. It was pretty bad. It was a pretty bad outfield. In 2017, obviously, Brantley came back, was okay. They had Austin Jackson, and they had Lonnie Chisenhall, who went through some injuries that year. They still had... I believe they still had Brandon Guyer that year, I think in 2017. They did. And then they also brought in Jay Bruce at the end, too. That was a pretty good outfield, I think, all things considered, because Jackson had that rebound season.
Yeah. And Bruce was really good on the for the second half. Yeah.
For the August. It was a waiver trade, yeah, when those were still allowed. How much do you think Nolan Jones really raises the outfield? We were planning on talking about the outfield anyway and seeing what the Guardians could really get out of this outfield this year because, we were expecting big things from Lane Thomas this year. I feel like Steven Kwan, you're hoping he puts a full season together of, again, you can't expect Steven Kwan to hit 400, but can he be an all-star all year instead of a first half all-star? That would be pretty important for them. And then now you add Nolan Jones back to the mix. Like how much does one outfielder like Nolan Jones, who is coming off a rough year, but obviously, I've seen some good things out of him. How much does that really change your outlook on this outfield? Does it really raise it that much?
When I'm kind of looking at what he does compared to what Will Brennan did, the whole grand scheme of it with Will Brennan was we knew what he was, which is a guy who gets hot from time to time and then struggles. And Jones, he's going to walk, he's going to hit home runs. He doesn't hurt your floor and he raises the ceiling significantly. We've seen like if he catches, a hot spell, what it can look like. He looked when he had a whole season hot spell, which I don't think is going to happen again. But if he ever gets even close to that, that is, one of the best outfielders in baseball when he is, because of just how good those tools are. Because he's not just this, 6'5" power hitter. He also runs like the wind and has one of the best arms in all of baseball. Now his range is questionable and there's that side of it, but like, yeah, about the only potential fallback is defense. And I know people will focus on Brennan's negative defense miscues in the postseason last year, but he's a pretty solid defender. The year before when he got more playing time, the numbers were really strong, honestly. So that's about the only hit you're taking with that trade-off. And you're just adding so much power potential and you're adding more, I don't know if I want to say patience, it's passivity, but it will result in walks. And it also means that he takes a lot of pitches, which is, again, a positive. You're going to get through and get into, now bullpens are so good, maybe it's not as much of a positive as it used to be, but over the course of a season, it means it's going to wear teams down. He's going to see a lot of pitches. And I think having him out there against righties, I don't see a way it isn't an upgrade. I just don't.
Yeah, it does. Like I said yesterday, it doesn't hurt your floor at all. And oddly enough, the projections also agree with this very closely. If you go and look at like Zips has Nolan Jones with a 107 WRC plus and Will Brennan 106. They just get there differently. Will Brennan gets there on batting average, they think, and Nolan Jones gets there on OPS, which is much higher in terms of OBP and slugging. And if you're looking at weighted on base average, which gives if you're not familiar with weighted on base average, it weights all the outcomes offensively, walks, hits, or doubles, triples, homers. It weights all those. And obviously, the better the outcome, the higher the weight. Nolan Jones 342 WOBA, and Will Brennan 315, and actually that's projected to be. If you look at Zips, Nolan Jones at 342 WOBA is the highest on the team projection wise. So that's that's for the outfield, not for the whole team. That's for the outfield specifically. So
that'd be quite a drop for Jose if that was.
Yeah, I have to look now. Actually, he's second. So Nolan Jones is projected for the second highest WOBA on the team. It's Jose Ramirez at 350 and Nolan Jones at 342 and Kyle Manzardo at 336. So yeah, I hate to be hyperbolic. I think this is the most excited. I mean, it's one player, and it's a guy that actually was not good last year and does have injury concerns. The Guardians are very aware that Nolan Jones has issues, and I don't think, he's not going to play every day, right? They expect most of his bats to come in right field. It's going to be against right-handed pitching, so he will get the bulk of the at-bats. But I just like the idea of you're going to keep Jones, I think, healthier by platooning him. Someone also said, let's not use the word platoon. Let's just call it matchups. It's not platoon. It's just matchups. It's common sense. If this guy, everybody wants a full-time outfielder, right? Everybody wants a Grady Sizemore. Everybody wants Aaron Judge. That's the ideal. But when you don't, you have to find the way to maximize what you have. And by what you do by maximizing, go back to 2016. Lonnie Chisnall and Brandon Guyer
were great.
Made a fantastic right field tandem. And again, yes, you'd love to have a full-timer, but when you don't, you have to make the best decisions you can. And I think it'll keep Nolan Jones healthy to play him, to sit him against lefties. It'll help. I don't know how much it will or hurt or help Noel because he still has the chase issues and he may not be playing as much if he only plays against lefties. But I think I'd have to look. I didn't check the numbers, but I assume he's better against lefties, but you're at least going to minimize his issues, I would assume, by not playing him as much. And you're trying to tap into that power potential. In terms of power, when you look at Nolan Jones and Lane Thomas and Jhonkensy Noel, this is certainly the most power this outfield's had since I don't know.
In the 90s.
Well, I was going to say they brought in Brandon Moss the one year.
The rest of that outfield was.
Yeah. They still have Drew Stubbs then. Like the 2013 outfield, I was excited for. It was Brantley, it was Stubbs, it was
Born.
Bourne. Yeah, Nick Swisher playing first / outfield. Like I was legitimately excited for that outfield. And they made the playoffs. It wasn't as exciting as we hoped.
Go
Most
ahead.
this is the most upside this outfield's had in quite some time. If I'm being honest, I think it is.
And I think one of the things to point out is like when he was really good, I was diving into the numbers. It's like for his career, in the minors, there's always been concerns of Nolan Jones. And I always thought he was never going to hit lefties. He's just got such long levers. It kind of makes it difficult. But he actually hit them in that 1 year. Now he had ridiculous BABIP. But what I thought was interesting is he actually struck out less against lefties, which is not what I expected. I always thought lefties would have a higher K rate because it's just easier to, get inside on the hands with that swing. Maybe sometime he wouldn't be the worst option there. And I think, I can't remember if we said this on air or off air, but I'll state it again in case it was off air. Like for me, it's a really interesting trade because it is a trade that raises the ceiling right now. And to me, it also raises the floor at that position. And let's say DeLauder comes back, like you can make this work. You can balance guys around. And then in a year, I mean, I know you've talked about CJ Kafis as trade bait. This in my mind, makes him even more trade bait because this could be your first baseman, your / or your DH next year if you want to try to keep him as healthy as possible. If DeLauder can pull through. I mean, I know it's a lot of ifs and it's a lot of pushing forward, but it's a trade for now, but it is a trade that is logical for the year after and the year after that. And there's a lot of ways to approach and maximize the value they got, which again, no one ever looks dumb trading with the Rockies.
Yeah, I'm trying to think the last time they looked bad. I mean, they gave him Cal Quantrill, and it looks like Cody Huff is going to be much better for them.
Zach Putnam is the guy who comes to mind. Like Putnam, they gave up on a little bit too early, and he became a decent reliever, and I feel like they traded him to the Rockies, and I can't remember for what.
Kevin Slowey, was that what it was?
I think it was Slowey. I think Slowey for Putnam. You're right.
Wow.
Good call.
Wow.
I think that is the worst trade they've had with the Rockies, and that was 2011, 2012.
I don't know why my brain chooses to remember that fact, but I can't remember a lot of other important things. My wife would tell me that all the time. All right, we're going to talk more about this Guardians outfield. How big's the upside this year? How many home runs can they hit? Where will they finish in that? We'll talk about the bullpen. Joey Cantillo is going to the bullpen. We'll talk about the impacts of that. Final roster moves that before opening day. And if there's any more extensions coming, all coming up on today's Locked On Guardians.
So I decided to bring out Just Ingredients today and show the bag because I've talked about many times. Like I have food allergies. My son has food allergies. And you can just look here on the bag, see how easy. It's not just like the little type where you got to look something up and find, oh, does this have the thing? Nope. They are very transparent. They are up front. You can even see no artificial dyes. And I'll tell you, and before I do the full ad read, the other nice thing is just to me, I think it's got a great texture. When you make it, it kind of reminds me of a Frosty and just the way it comes together. I think it's delicious. I think it is something great. I had it yesterday on the show, and then I wasn't even tempted to snack at the end of the evening, which is unusual for me. And when it comes to fueling your body, quality matters. That's why Just Ingredients is changing the game with high quality products designed to support better health and peak performance. Just Ingredients offers NF certified line of protein powder, electrolytes, pre-workout, and creatine, all rigorously tested to ensure they are free from substances banned by major athletic organizations. Just Ingredients is also partnered with two-time MVP Bryce Harper, who trusts their NSF certified sports line to fuel his training and recovery. So visit justingredients.us and use the code LOCKDOWNMLB for 20% off. And for more wellness tips, follow at just.ingredients on Instagram.
Are you paying for too many streaming services? I know I am. I'm trying to watch college basketball. I'm trying to watch baseball. I'm trying to watch college baseball. I've got so many streaming services. I can't keep up. So if you ever check your bank account and you wonder where all your money goes, you've got dining, you've got streaming services, online shopping, you lose track pretty fast. Monarch Money is your personal CFO, gives you full visibility and control into your finances. And it's not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center for you where you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So stop managing your money and start building your health. I think we all have those conversations with our significant others or somebody in your life who you're managing money with, right? That's never a fun conversation with a partner. You want to make that conversation a lot easier. You want to know where your money's going. You want to make a lot more tenable for the both of you. So One of the easy tools with Monarch Money is the collaboration tool, so you can set goals, track shared and personal accounts in the same command center, and stay on the same page. No fights, no stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. You're going to use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com. You're going to get 50% off that first year with that code, which is monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever you get podcasts. As we always say, it is our favorite half hour of the day. I hope it's yours as well. If you're enjoying what you're hearing and you want a little more from Jeff and I, if you want some bonus content, if you want some written articles, if you want access to some information a little bit early, you want to text us during games and when big news happens, join us on the Insiders program. That's joinsubtext.com/LockedOnGuardians. Yeah, link is also in your show description. We'd love to have you. Love to have those conversations. I know I'm going to be putting a lot more into it. I will be giving out some observations from minor league games through there when I'm at those games, and we'll be texting throughout games during the season as well. So come on in and join the conversation. We actually had our Locked On Guardians Insiders fantasy draft before tonight's recording on Monday night. So thanks to all those who joined that and be part of it next year. So come over and hang out. Make sure you're downloading, subscribing daily, and hitting the bell so you don't miss videos. I'm down to my number 3 prospect video. Number 2 will be tomorrow. Number 1, obviously, will be Thursday. You can catch those if you get the bell on YouTube, and you'll miss an episode on audio if you auto download too. All right, let's get back to the outfield here. So last year, Jeff, the outfield hit 52 home runs, and they had a 103 WRC plus. Not bad. It's an above average outfield. I think that's
surprised it was that in the end. I got to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would have expected that. You're including some stuff from Lane Thomas when he got here. Obviously, Kwan's first half run. Noel had a good stretch for a little bit last year too, I would say. But Cleveland finished 21st overall in home runs when it comes to outfield, and they finished at 15th overall in WRC plus at 103. Are the Guardians going to break those numbers in 2025?
First thing I want to say is, we had a lot of people in our comments and just a lot of times who talk about how easy it should be to find outfielders and how many, outfielders are like, that is so telling. The stats you told us about it, how outfield is actually really hard to find. They had a patchwork outfield last year. Let's be honest. And their all-star spent the second half struggling to hit his body weight. And he's a small dude. Kwan was below 200 for 2 months of the season. And you had a lot of mismatched pieces. People wanted to cut Lane Thomas with the slow start he had when he came here. And yet they were middle of the pack in WRC plus. Like, that speaks to how hard it is to find consistent outfielders. A lot. I don't know if there's any team that has like 3 guys outside of maybe like Arizona they feel like really comfortable counting on. I'm not even sure Arizona feels that way. It's like due to health and other issues, it's just hard. I mean, that's why Atlanta was like their team MVP last year might have been Ramon Laureano. To get back to your question though, like I think they should beat that. You're hoping that Kwan he's not going to hit 400 again, but you're also hoping he's not going to have like that second half was arguably like the worst months of his baseball career in the majors. So he should hopefully avoid that. Lane Thomas is going to be healthy this year, or at least starting out healthy. Last year he started hurt. And, Nolan Jones, first off, it's hard to play in Colorado because you're out of it by basically after the first pitch of the season. He had his health issues, and like you can go find, I retweeted from the Locked On Guardians Twitter account. Like he had his first child last year, and that child was born in the middle of the season, had massive health complications. And anyone out there who's a parent, I mean, I talked about being one. It's like there was no way he could completely focus on baseball. Like there's just no way with what he was going through. So not to make a ton of excuses, but there's things that just stand out for why every single guy on this outfield, not just the outfield in general, should be better, but why every player should be better in this outfield and positionally than a year ago. So do I think like they're going to improve? Absolutely. Because I think there's a pretty, simple pathway for, left field, center field, and right field to be, I don't want to say dramatically or significantly, but to be improved.
I will go as far to say as the Guardians will have 2 outfielders who hit 20 home runs this year. They have not had an outfielder hit 20 home runs since 2014, I want to say, with Michael Brantley. Yeah, 2014 was the last year an outfielder hit 20 home runs. They have not had one since. And that was Michael Brantley's like MVP, not MVP, but he got MVP votes that year. I'm going to say that Nolan Jones and Lane Thomas both hit 20. That's great. I mean, Nolan Jones already did it, and I know it was a really inflated year. I'm going to say he does it. And I wouldn't be surprised if Steven Kwan gets a 15. That's 45 home runs for those 3 guys alone. And then you have Jhonkensy, Noel, who knows who else will play the outfield this year. Ironically enough, Zips, by the way, if you look at Zips projections, they have Johnathan Rodriguez with the second most home runs in this outfield this year at 19. Did not expect that. If you look at home runs, it's Noel at 22, Rodriguez 19, Thomas 18, Nolan Jones 14, Kwan at 8. I'm surprised with Rodriguez, but I'll have more on Rodriguez here in a second. But
because he's been really good, like Rodriguez has in terms of like minor league production, and Zips loves that.
Yeah. It's definitely the highest upside outfield they've had in quite some time. Nobody was excited about the 2016 outfield. I don't think there was any excitement over the outfields, and like you're getting Brantley back. Austin Jackson was Austin Jackson a minor league deal? Did he come in a minor league deal?
I think he was an NRI, like a non-roster invitee.
Yeah, I can't remember. He was. No one was really talking that up. I mean, there are people who wanted Cleveland to sign Austin Jackson in 2016, and I remember somebody called it malpractice. They didn't sign him in 2016, and they made the outfit. They made the World Series, and then 2017, they had him, and the outfield was fine. It was pretty good, and then it hasn't been that good since. You had Framil Reyes, who was a DH. God, they've just run through so many outfields. So I think it's really easy to drink the Kool-Aid on this. I will say, yes, they have to get Nolan Jones healthy, and they have to keep him healthy. They have to also work on. It's hard to know whether or not. Was it health related that he had a hard time getting the ball in the air to his pull side? Because when he was to Cleveland in 2022, I think you talked about it yesterday. Like his launch angle was the best it's ever been. It was 15, or at least it's been the most like ideal it's ever been at 15. And he was getting the ball in the air. I mean, he had the pulled fly ball rate at 23% that year, and it's gone down every year ever since. So even in his great year at Coors Field in Colorado, his pull fly ball rate was down. His ground ball rate was higher in Colorado. So if Cleveland, it was a brief time in 2022 when he was up, but if Cleveland can help Nolan Jones, I think get back to getting the ball in the air to the pull side like he did in 2022. I'm not saying he's going to recreate 2023, but he does give them a lot more upside than Will Brennan. I think the barrel rate was really good. The hard hit rate was good in a very small sample. You're going to get some walks. So yeah, I think I'm expecting Lane Thomas to have a big year. I'm going to say the Guardians will hit. How many home runs do I want to say they're going to hit this year as an outfield? What did I say they hit last year? 52 as an outfield?
Sounds about right. 52, 51. While you're thinking about that, I'll just throw out too. For anyone concerned, Nolan Jones had a higher 52. Nolan Jones had a higher slugging percentage on the road than in Colorado. During his good year, so don't worry about it. Just he was in Colorado, like he can slug it anywhere. That's not the concern.
I will say, let's see, we said 20 home, so 55 home runs between the main 3. Give me 15 more from Noel. So that's what 60 homers.
You said 45 plus 15 would be 60, right?
Give me 60.
No, that's it'd be 70 because you said 20 and 20 would be 40. 15 from Noel would be 55, and if Kwan gives you 15, that's 70.
Give me 70 home runs for the Guardians. The most home runs
have rated them a year ago.
A year ago, where would 70 home runs have gotten the Guardians
in outfield ranks? I don't know if you still have that up, but
I can in a second. Yeah, if you can.
Yeah, I can
for a hot second.
So the interesting thing with Nolan Jones, like looking at some of his StatCast data, is his fast swing was down, his barrel was down, and his launch angle were down, as was like the length of his swing. And so a lot of it does feel like last year him being hurt and like him going through that. And if you look, especially from August on, it was all very low. And that is his child was born in August. So not only is it health, but it's everything else. So again, there's every reason to expect, as long as he stays healthy, Nolan Jones to have a really good rebound case.
So they actually had if you want to look at guys who played the outfield last year, not just when they hit home runs in the outfield, they actually had 61 for guys who counted as the outfield depth. So I'm saying they're going to get to 70. 70 would actually get them up to 16th overall or 17th overall, by above Texas, above Atlanta. It would get them up there. It's not anything special.
And if they end up calling up a certain outfitter, I think you and I have both had someone tell us they're calling up, there's a chance for another double-digit home run guy there.
Yeah, we'll talk about how the rest of the roster is going to shake out for opening day. We'll talk a little about Joey Cantillo, if there's more extensions coming. All in the rest of today is Locked On Guardians. Are you feeling the madness? Is your bracket making you feel mad? Mine stinks. You know what? FanDuel is giving you a chance to get on the action during March Madness like never before. If you're a new customer and you're sad about your bracket, but you want to still have fun during March Madness, you can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks from everything. Buzzer beaters, Cinderella stories, not a lot of those. And who's cutting down the nets? Sweet 16's coming up. If your bracket is trash like mine and you want to have a little fun during the games while the games are going on responsibly, go over to FanDuel. Stay in on the action. There's always something to bet on during the action. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully the games are a lot of fun going forward and over the weekend, and there's a little bit less chalk. So visit FanDuel.com, put in that $5 bet, get $200 in bonus bets if you win. If you're a new customer, get in on the college hoops tournament action all tournament long. All right, we are still waiting on the rest of the roster. The Guardians have one more spot up in the air right now, and it looks like it's going to come from the position player side. It has to, yes. The pitching is set, so we'll talk about the pitching in a second.
Well, you can only have 13 pitchers on a roster, so it has to be.
Right, so, pitching is set. So right now, and I was talking in a message with our buddy Andrew, who is
Kinsman.
He's our roster. He's our roster guy. He is the one who understands the opaque. He always calls them opaque roster rules for Major League Baseball.
He understands all the rules.
He does. And I heard this piece of news, and I don't know if it's a guaranteed piece of news, but I did hear the whisper of this. And I had to go straight to Andrew. It's like, well, this doesn't make sense. So a player who gets optioned down in spring training, I was on the air Saturday talking about this after the news happened. And I said, well, they can't bring Angel Martinez back, or they can't bring so-and-so back because he's already been optioned down. And there's not 10 days left before the season starts. So they can't bring him back up because you got to be down for 10 days. Well, it sounds like that's not an official move. When you send somebody down in camp, it's not official. It's not an actual transaction. That doesn't happen until the season starts. So anybody they have quote unquote sent down from by now, I don't think it's not 100% clarity on this because, as Andrew always says, the roster rules are very opaque. There's no clarity, but it sounds like they can recall whoever because these aren't official transactions until the season starts when you make your roster decision. So things could change. I did hear that there's a chance that Johnathan Rodriguez might be the extra guy on the roster. And that makes some sense early on when you consider that they're facing Kansas City, who's got Cole Reagans to open the year. And then you've got, I believe, San Diego after that. And then they play the Athletics after that. Is that who they play? LA. So you've got a couple lefties in LA. You've got Reed Detmers. I think Tyler Anderson's still there.
Another right-hand bat in general, just for balance on the bench. Like that's why Brendan really didn't have a chance to make this team.
Well, he was on the team until Nolan Jones got here.
And then that disrupted your balance.
Yeah, so you have Schneemann on the bench with Arias at second, and you've got Manzardo, and then you've got Noel, and then you've got Jones. Thomas plays all the time. So, yeah, Rodriguez, at least early on, can balance out. Rodriguez can DH with Manzardo. That gives you your platoon early on, or the matchup, if we want to call the matchup set of platoon. So I don't know if we'll find out from the Guardians on Wednesday before they make the announcement. But and there's always a chance they could be on the waiver wire too, looking for somebody. Someone pointed out to me, by the way, that I was interested in Brandon Drury. It sounds like he has a wrist injury too, so that's interesting. There's always a chance they can make a move, but I did hear there was a potential that Rodriguez could be the extra guy on the roster. And it would make some sense.
Yeah. I heard from a source connected to a AAA player that that it's Rodriguez. So we'll have to see. Like, I'm not going to run out there and state that. We're saying it on something that's going to break in the morning. So it's not, there's a chance other people will run with this information. But I'm assuming if this person heard it, they heard it from a guy in AAA who heard it from the source. So I think there's a good chance it's Rodriguez. Well, I agree. It's kind of interesting to go out and see if there's anyone available. It could be a situation like Cade Smith, like, hey, you're here, but don't rent, don't buy. They might give Rodriguez that speech. And I know that people asking why not Martinez. And yeah, I mean, I went and dug into all of his split status in the minors, and he's pretty even both ways. So there's some logic to that, and he can play all over, and he could do a lot of things. But I think he was just so bad in spring that they just want him to go down and kind of get his stuff together and recoup. It was a rough spring for him. Whereas in the other side of it too, it's like Rodriguez has not gotten a lot of opportunities, and I mean, there's nothing left for that dude to prove. I've said it many times. If I was the Colorado Rockies, I would have asked for Rodriguez and Freeman. Like, I would have gone out and tried to get every bit of value, because I feel like the Guardians might have still said yes, and still been like, can you believe they're doing this? But he has performed so well. Those are the guys you want to try. Those are the guys you want to give opportunities to. The guys
if you're a bad team,
yeah.
Right.
If you're a bad team, like sometimes you find JD Martinez, sometimes you find K. Tom. There's a lot of ways that can end up, but he's earned that opportunity, and I think just great for him. Great for Johnathan Rodriguez to get a chance, and hopefully an extended chance.
Yeah, we'll see how much run he gets if he is indeed the guy on Thursday morning or Wednesday they make this announcement. But I don't know how much run he'll really get, because it's going to be definitely a matchup. Yeah, it's going to be a matchup dependent thing. So, but it's better than him going to AAA. And I agree with you on Martinez. I think Martinez needs some more time at AAA. He needs to play every day and see what becomes of him. And I don't know, maybe he just raises his trade value, if anything else. Joey Cantillo is going. Before we get into Joey Cantillo, all I have on extra extensions, by the way, is it sounds like the Guardians were trying to finish one more extension. It sounds like that extension was going to be for a pitcher. You and I had some debates off air what my pitcher might be. I think we assumed it was Cade Smith, but you did bring up, I don't know, a very slim chance that it's somebody other than Cade Smith. I think it's most likely Cade Smith, but there is a world where it's somebody other than Cade Smith.
Yeah, just to throw out there, Gavin Williams. I know we've talked about he's a Boris client, this and that. As always, you have to read everything Zach writes, because it's always fantastic. Like Zach's my go-to for this team in terms of I love to read content. I'm on The Athletic. I like Zach and Porter's Line for covering the Blue Jackets, and the reason I have that subscription. And in his article, it made it very clear that for someone like Tanner, getting that money up front mattered. He sat there and watched Shane Bieber get hurt, multiple times. He sat there and watched Tristan McKenzie. Tristan McKenzie almost signed an extension a few years ago, and now he's become he has lost millions of dollars because they didn't get it across the 1 yard line. Tristan McKenzie has lost tens of millions of dollars likely because of that. So when you're sitting on this team and you're seeing that, that's part of the reason Tanner wanted to get this done. And that's what Zach's piece felt like to me. If you are Gavin Williams, who has had a lot more health scares than Tanner, that could be a reason. And I sat down and there's the new pre-arbitration money pool. And Tanner has gotten 1.4 million from that. You add in his signing bonus, which is 250,000. He's gotten about 1.7 million dollars since he, not counting player salaries, just signing bonuses and other bonuses. Gavin got 2.25, so it's about $600,000 difference at this point, because Gavin hasn't gotten any of the pre-arb bonuses. He hasn't been good enough. He hasn't put in enough to get there. And last year, was injury plagued. So maybe there's a world. Agents are there to meet the needs of their clients. So while Boris may not be the guy you'd expect to do this, he might also be like, if that's what my guy wants, then let's set him up. I would still bet my money on him being Cade Smith that they're talking to. I would put that at the 90% mark with the 10% Gavin. But I mean, even a few months ago, I would have said 0% for Gavin. So I think we're seeing some guys understand hey, having guaranteed money is a nice safety net, because they're sitting there looking at examples. John Means on this team, Shane Bieber, Tristan McKenzie, all of these pitchers that have lost millions of dollars due to health.
I think you look at that too, and you think, if you're Gavin, I agree with you. It's very unlikely for Gavin, because we assume that, if he has a great year, honestly, this year, I would not be stunned if Cleveland looks to trade him, because
they got too much control. He's got.
I know, but when you consider his past health issues and all that kind of stuff, I don't know. But I think if you're looking at this from Boris and Gavin's point of view, if you're looking at the health thing, by the time Gavin hits free agency, we're going to have, same with Tanner, you're going to have a new CBA. You have no idea what that's going to look like. Like, there's never going to be a salary cap, but there's going to be new rules with the CBA. And Gavin's got what, 3 or 4 more years after this season. So
he's not a free agent until 2030.
Okay, so he's got a little bit more time.
Yeah.
So who knows? Given his health history, like, who knows what his arm and his body is going to look like at the end of that? I mean, he may reach free agency and it may be the same situation as guys like Bieber and McKenzie. You just never know.
That'd be like his age 31 year in free agency. Like he's gonna be over 30.
He'll be a free agent. He hits free agency almost the same time as Tanner because of that. And if you're looking at that, like, the idea of the agent and the client is to secure the most money possible, right? Who says the most money possible for Gavin Williams is not in this extension? Because if there is a health scare and he's not as valuable, if he turns into Tristan McKenzie type issues or whatever, maybe this is the payday for him, right? Maybe it's not the free agency. Maybe this is the payday for him. And you have to consider what your client and what your best financial interest is early on. And obviously Cleveland's going to leverage that against you, but you got to consider, what's my best chance to cash in? Is it 5 years from now? Is it right now? If you look at 5 years from now, the different landscape of Major League Baseball, TV money, salaries, whatever happens in the CBA, and Gavin's health, like this might be the best chance for Gavin to cash in and for Boris to get his money, because that's what Boris wants too, the most money. He may not get that money at the back end for Gavin if he reaches free agency, because he'll be older. So I don't know. I would not. It's not likely, but it's not zero. I think it's Cade Smith. I also don't think they'll get it across the finish line with Cade Smith, but we'll see, because I don't think they're going to find that out. Real quickly, too, I was chatting with our insider and everydayer, Nunzio Izzo, and he was not happy with Joey Cantillo going to the bullpen. Andrew Walters is going to AAA. I'll say this for the bullpen right now. I think they're carrying, they got McKenzie, they got Cantillo. Cantillo makes the bullpen because Colby Allard and Parker Mashinsky were just not good this spring. They didn't really separate themselves.
I mean, Allard was good, but like the stuff wasn't, like, it was stats over actual stuff.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything there behind it.
Yeah.
And obviously Sabrowski is out, and there's, he's trying to return, all that kind of stuff. So I think Cantillo makes that out of that role. And I know there was some worry about, like, how does this affect Cantillo's future and what's his role going to be? I actually like this for Cantillo. I still value Cantillo as a starter long term, but I think in the short term, it definitely does mess with the ability to stretch him out. I don't know how they're going to deploy him. So you have to worry about, like, using him in short term and then trying to stretch him back out to long term. Or maybe he's only a long guy in this bullpen. He doesn't pitch 1 or 2 innings. But I really like this for him, because if you send him out there, again, this is the same thing as Tristan McKenzie. I don't really believe, I guess we're going to find out about McKenzie if he can really do this or not, because he's going to be forced into it if they can turn him into Carlos Carrasco. But I buy this more for Cantillo than I do for McKenzie, because 100%. I think Cantillo's got the pitch mix. He's got the stuff to be a great reliever. Not that McKenzie doesn't, but I think Cantillo, his fastball is going to play better out of the bullpen. He has the pitch mix. This might force him to be more attackful. It's the same thing they want McKenzie to do. It might be the same thing they want Cantillo to do. I like this for Cantillo. I do worry about what it looks like in the future for him in terms of having to stretch him back out and yo-yo. It's not healthy for them. But I like this move for Cantillo. I would not be surprised if Joey Cantillo goes into this role and ends up succeeding and they don't move him back out because he's just so good.
Can I also bring up a little bit tinfoil on this? Cantillo has maybe the best stuff of any lefty that they have. And
100%.
he now gets to go and move with someone that we consider a rising star coach, and Brad Goldberg daily, and getting in reps, and someone who's going to be sitting there working. Not to say that like that stuff doesn't happen, but I think there could be some value in just like having, going out and kind of throwing daily and having a chance to review your mechanics daily. Because I feel like, things get out of whack on him, and then he loses it. And I think there's, and that's what happened with Carrasco to a degree. It's like, having that daily review, working on it. And I agree with you. And yes, they want another lefty, but I think this is a chance for him to be in that temporary role. I just think there's going to be some value in that. And hopefully he'll move back out to starter and he'll have a fantastic career for this team.
Yeah, like I said, I like him in this role. I think it'll be good for him. We'll see how he's deployed. But I do think it could be very good for him and effective. All right, the season's almost here. Real quickly, too, about the open day roster. Again, we're talking about the open day roster, what it's going to look like. Again, on April 25th, on May 25th, this roster is going to be totally different. So if you're focused on what the roster looks like now, 6 months from now, this roster is going to be totally different. So we're making a big deal about what it looks like right now. Everyone's trying to break it down. Hopefully come October when we're talking about a playoff matchup or playoff roster again, things are going to look a little bit different. So don't, things are going to change maybe hours from when you're listening to this, not even months. Could be change hours. So, stay on alert. So,
no, it'll change very quickly.
Yeah. Before the season starts, we got 2 days. We're going to do our season preview show. We're going to do a mailbag. We're going to decide what the order of that looks like. But we'll have our prediction show. We'll have our preview. We will have a mailbag before the season starts. Might even do that mailbag live. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But all that coming up this week. Games count this week. We're back. We're ready to go. Stick with us. We love having you, and we are excited for the season. We hope you are too.
Shout out real quickly to BHK is Dudeness, one of our everydayers who made a comment about being an everydayer. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to all of our everydayers for joining us. Remember to rate and review, download daily. It helps. And go Guardians, go.